Good evening, I'm Melissa Hendricks Beach, and tonight we begin a special 30-minute show honoring former First Lady Barbara Bush. She was laid to rest on Saturday after more than 5 decades in the public eye. The former First Lady is being remembered for her devotion to country and family. Tonight, we take a look back at the woman that was so loved by many in our country. Barbara Bush's family and friends gathered at St. Martin's Church in Houston, celebrating her life and her legacy. Her husband of 73 years, former President George H.W. Bush, was in the front row, and the couple's 5 children, including former President George W. Bush, sat nearby. Prominent names in American politics crossed party lines to pay their respects. First Lady Melania Trump sat alongside former presidents and former First Ladies. Speakers paid tribute to Barbara Bush's work in and out of the public eye. After the funeral, a procession made its way to Mrs. Bush's final resting place. Barbara Bush was buried at the George H.W. Bush Library next to her daughter, who passed away from leukemia when she was just 3 years old. The graveside ceremony was private, but the procession route was open to the public. And as Stephanie Escobar reports, hundreds of people lined the George Bush Drive to pay their final respects.
With American flags, Texans said farewell to former First Lady Barbara Bush.
She's very much a part of this community.
Many at Texas A&M University viewed the 92-year-old as a mother figure.
She meant a lot to all of us, and I think it's just something that the Aggies do to pay respects to our family.
Hundreds of people lined up along the procession route to honor a woman with a passion for literacy.
Mrs. Bush is an icon. She's a great woman.
I think she brought us together. She brought peace, but she also brought structure and was a great role model for the family and particularly for we mothers.
One woman felt called to honor her after meeting her in person when she went to A&M football games.
I wanted to honor her, and I made a sign, and my sign says, "You are our nation's heroine." She's our national treasure, in my opinion.
Hazelwood and many other women also honored Mrs. Bush by wearing her favorite accessory.
We know her for her pearls. We'll always know her for her pearls. I thought that was the least I could do to recognize how much she meant to me.
Barbara Bush made an impact on so many lives, and many of those affected may not even realize that she had a hand in some of the things that they benefit from every single day. News West 9's Eric Onyeshefele tells us her volunteer efforts are still expanding and helping others.
Words of love and adoration, like this tweet from Congressman Mike Conaway, who says Barbara Bush was a tremendous woman, a devoted wife, mother, and advocate. These words are ringing true about the 92-year-old former First Lady who passed away. She was a native New Yorker, but officials at the George W. Bush childhood home would tell you some of her more important years were spent here in West Texas.
We're still reaping the benefits of many of the things that she participated in while they lived here.
A staple in the community.
Barbara and George both taught Sunday school at First Presbyterian Church. They both volunteered at the brand new Midland Memorial Hospital, which had opened in 1950. They served on the PTA of George's Elementary School, raised money for our community theater, our first YMCA building, our first symphony orchestra.
She did it all. But what Paul St. Hilaire, executive director for the Bush Childhood Home, says, Barbara might be more proud of her work with literacy.
Very adamant about making sure that not only children but adults as well participated and became more literate, which is a very, very important thing. She was an avid book reader.
The former First Lady gave so much to so many people. And here in the Basin, we too are mourning the loss of someone who did a lot for us.
Well, to the world, Barbara Bush was known as the former First Lady, but that wasn't her only nickname. At home, she was lovingly known as the Enforcer. News West 9's Phoenix O'Connor tells us just how strict this mom could be. Plus, a friend shares some fond memories of Mrs. Bush.
Mom, one of many nicknames she has was the Enforcer. So there were unwritten rules, and if you violated them, she would enforce the rules. and do it in a way that was pretty effective. I don't remember my dad doing that.
It was through those rules and tough love that kept the family humble and grounded.
I mean, she was a rule maker, and she did have high expectations for keeping things neat and just basic rules. And she would let us know when we hadn't met those rules. But she would never let us think we were any different or better than others. And she just kept us grounded.
Even when one of her sons became president of the United States, she didn't let up. One local woman, Sue Brannon, remembers her time with the Bush family, and one story stood out more than the rest.
George W. tells the story. When he was president, they were at Hyannisport drinking coffee out on the veranda one morning, and he put his feet up on the coffee table, and she said, "George, get your feet off my coffee table." And Jeb said, "Mother, he's president of the United States." She said, "I don't care who he is. He's not putting his feet on my coffee table." And he said, "Boy, I never put my feet on her coffee table again." She was born in New York, and George told her after they married and were married a while, "I'm going to go to Texas and go in the oil business." I think I'd have said, "Whoa, wait a minute, let's talk about this." She didn't. She said, "George, if that's what you want to do, I'm with you 100%.
That's who Barbara Bush was, a devoted wife and mother of 6 children. As a former First Lady, Barbara Bush wasn't known to wear designer clothing.
You see pictures of Barbara. She always had on her Barbara Bush pearls and earrings like this.
Even her iconic white hair had a deeper meaning that many to this day don't know about.
She lost her daughter with leukemia when she was 3 years old, and that was one of the hardest things she said she ever did, and that's when her hair turned white.
While her husband was campaigning for the 1989 presidency, she was urged to color her hair to achieve a younger look.
I said, "Barbara, you look like a little old lady with that gray hair. You need to put some color on your hair." And they were in Dallas, and it was hot as blue blazes. They were standing outside, and he was giving a speech, and she started perspiring, and that color started running down her face. And she said, "I'm going to be gray-headed no matter what."
Mrs. Bush is one of only 2 women in U.S. history to reach a very special achievement. Former First Lady Barbara Bush wore many hats. She was always in the community. News West 9's Eric Onyeshefele spotlighted one of the characteristics that you might have missed.
When you look at the history books, former First Lady Barbara Bush was known for her work in the community, different charitable efforts, and her desire to stress the importance of reading.
She definitely had a purpose for the roles that she served.
Those same history books will also show Mrs. Bush was only the 2nd First Lady to be a wife and mother to a president.
The experience that she had in the White House enabled her to be able to bestow that knowledge and that expertise on to George W. Bush and, of course, Laura Bush.
Talk about having the answers to the test. The right way, of course.
They kind of had an advantage, and certainly for Laura Bush in stepping into the role as First Lady and hosting events and carrying on a lot of the important functions and receiving foreign ambassadors.
The passing of Mrs. Bush has been felt by many here in the Permian Basin, including Ginger Shantz, a government instructor for Midland College.
I'm originally from here even, so growing up here in West Texas, it's hard not to notice the influences of the Bushes out here. You know, they've lived out here. Their family has been a part of what Texas is about. And they took a lot of Texas to Washington, D.C.
Mrs. Bush is revered by everyone you talk to. Shantz says if any one of her students asked her to describe the former First Lady, she would tell them her title didn't define her.
She was involved in politics, but it wasn't politics that made her.
Mrs. Bush was also a role model for many young women. News West 9's Dana Morris was able to talk to a few of them about the example the former First Lady set.
She embodies the Republican Party. She embodies what women can bring to the Republican Party.
As Sherry Hurd addressed her fellow Republicans at their monthly meeting, she wanted to pay tribute to a woman she calls a role model.
Well, I put these on today in honor of Barbara Bush because she just meant so much to me.
Now the president of the Ector County Republican Women, Hurt says it was Bush's values that initially caught her attention.
Growing up with a woman like that had so much class and so much presence in front of people and truly cared about people, and something I thought was wonderful, as they said that she was married to her husband for 73 years.
At today's meeting, Bush was honored. A long and solemn prayer commemorated her for the example she set for so many women across the country. A sentiment that Ector County Judge Debbie Hayes also shared about the former First Lady.
Barbara Bush was what every mother, grandmother wants to be. She loved life and she embraced it, and she made Texas what Texas is.
Hayes says she got to meet Bush at a women's luncheon several years back.
She didn't want to talk about herself. She wants to talk about you. She wants to get to know you personally, because she just realized that it's the people that make up the love and the bigness of Texas.
And while not everyone in today's room may have gotten the chance to meet Barbara Bush, her impact was one that could certainly be felt.
But she made me realize that the values of the Republican Party and what the platform stands for is what I believe in. And so her message is all of our message.
Because love, family values, and a good heart are part of a message that can carry on for generations.
As we continue to remember the life of former First Lady Barbara Bush, we also remember her charitable work and impact on her community. The George W. Bush Childhood Home is keeping her legacy going. News West 9's Eric Onyeshefele explains.
She is one of the most gracious ladies to ever have been First Lady.
As the world remembers former First Lady Barbara Bush, at the George W. Bush Childhood Home in Midland, they're asking the community to contribute to a cause near and dear to Barbara's heart, literacy, by donating children's books.
These books are made available free of charge to local children anytime that they come by the museum, and it is our way again of honoring Barbara's love of literacy.
Mrs. Bush was known to do charitable work in and around the Midland community. It's a community Bush Home Executive Director Paul St. Hilaire says also gives back.
We know that in this economy there are some families that can't make buying new books for their children a priority.
You can see previously donated books flood the shelves at the Bush Childhood Home. For 8 years, on every third Thursday, kids also pack the center to be read to and leave with a book of their own.
We just hope that that will instill in some children the love for reading, get them to put down their electronic devices for just a few minutes and pick up a book, use their imagination, and really create a world in which they can be fully participating.
Hilaire says families have told him how much a free book in the reading program has helped their child. Reactions like that never get old, and their reactions, Mrs. Bush and those after her would be pleased with.
It was very, very touching, and it's very understandable why Barbara Bush was so enamored with pushing literacy throughout the country and throughout the world.
The Bush Childhood Home also holds a special reading time for children, keeping literacy in the forefront of children and parents. News West 9's Phoenix O'Connor tells us about all of the good work that they do.
It was a packed room as the children waited to hear a story at the Bush Childhood Home. And even the experts agree reading is important.
I'm a reading professor at UTPB, and we always try to stress that it starts in the home. And if parents can read to their child every night, it grows their vocabulary and makes a huge difference.
One mom says reading to your kids at night is an incredible bonding experience.
Just being with your child, you know, skin to skin, having that time. If you're reading or if you're just, you know, telling stories or singing or whatever it is, I think that, you know, it just helps build that attachment between your children and yourself.
We honor the legacy of Mrs. Barbara Bush by promoting literacy. She felt that it was important to instill the value of literacy in every household. And so we do so in our small way, by having the Laura Bush bookshelves.
The Laura Bush bookshelf is filled with books for young readers, all the way up to teen readers. The George W. Bush Childhood Home also needs more volunteers to come read to the children and give tours.
Mrs. Bush didn't just touch hearts in the Permian Basin, but also in other parts of the state and the country. She visited the city of Tyler twice, in 1997 and then again in 2012. She supported the Tyler Literacy Council both financially and through speaking engagements. Brianna Rivers spoke to the members of the Literacy Council of Tyler. They say the impact from her contributions to the organization is still helping families there today.
Throughout her life, former First Lady Barbara Bush was passionate about advocating for literacy.
Home is the first school, the parent is the first teacher, and reading is the first subject. That's what she lived by.
That passion is what brought her to Tyler twice in support of the city's Literacy Council.
We can find meaning and reward by serving some higher purpose than ourselves.
We invited Barbara Bush to come and speak at our event. She had been in Tyler 15 years before, when the Literacy Council was very new. She put the Literacy Council on the map.
Michelle Brookshire, chair of the 2012 event, says with the support of Bush, the council raised around $100,000 for their endowment, and her contributions didn't stop there.
What she did for us is give us the lasting impact of adult literacy.
Over a 10-year period, the council received financial donations from Bush's foundation, which helped them open the Family Learning Center of Tyler. The center houses a program for both ESL children and their parents, which Executive Director Nancy Crawford says Bush invested over $300,000 into.
This program right here where we're sitting wouldn't be here without her.
In a handwritten letter to the council, Bush commended the members for their work.
You three could move the world. Why don't you run for president?
Brookshire says the heartfelt message is one she will always hold dear, and Bush's lasting impact on the Tyler community is something she will always be grateful for.
She made our country more gracious and honorable, and has really been somebody that we were all very proud to look up to.
The public had a chance to pay their last respects to former First Lady Barbara Bush in Houston last Friday. Those who knew her as a friend continue to remember her legacy. Newswest 9's Phoenix O'Connor spoke with one such friend.
I know that I'm the world's luckiest woman. I think if I sort of put it in a nutshell, these are the things that are important to me: faith, family, and friends.
As soon as you meet her, you know she's a strong woman. The way she talks, the way she's direct, she asks very direct questions and she expects answers.
Her strength and courage was not only apparent to her family, it also showed the people she met every day. When Barbara lost her 3-year-old daughter, Robin, Barbara's strength never failed. Why is it that women here in Midland admire her so much?
Well, one of the reasons they admire is the way she raised her family. And to have gone through the loss that she did with Robin, it was traumatic for everybody. Back then, a diagnosis of leukemia was a death sentence for a child. There was nothing they could do.
For those that knew Barbara, all have said the death of Robin hit hard. But in West Texas, many of her friends had her support through her difficult time.
My mother was the corresponding secretary for the Junior League at that time, and it was her job to write a sympathy letter to the Bushes, and she still talks about how hard that was.
Although Barbara lost a daughter in Midland, she also gained one in Laura Welch Bush, who was born here. She and George married in 1978. Linda shares of a story Laura told her when she first met Barbara. Linda says she was a bit nervous and kept her answers short.
What do you do? And Laura said, I read.
Mrs. Bush also gave much of her time volunteering at the hospital. As Newswest 9's Eric Onyeshefili tells us, she was a big supporter of many things, including health care.
So lucky to have a legacy like this.
A page full of volunteers and the hours they put in.
From 1950 to today and into tomorrow.
One of the names of the list of volunteers for Midland Memorial Hospital, former First Lady Barbara Bush.
She would sew at home and make surgical covers for the instruments that were used in surgery once they were cleaned.
Mrs. Bush helped the hospital's auxiliary department for a year in 1958. Today, they are a group of 110 unpaid volunteers who help the hospital any way they can.
In addition to their hours and their service in the gift shop, surgery waiting room, golf cart, popcorn, information desk, and we still sew, we do fundraising for the hospital and give money.
Kimberly Modisette has seen numerous volunteers throughout the years, and through researching the department from its beginning, she's formed her own opinion on Mrs. Bush.
She was very loving and caring and community-minded, loved her family, loved her community, because she did give her hours to the hospital in sewing, and that's a labor of love.
The hospital's department and group of volunteers is still going strong.
I think she would be very proud of the legacy that she was a part of.
And it's a department filled with those who appreciate Mrs. Bush's contributions.
I want to tell her thank you for caring enough to help us along the path.
No matter what the gesture, big or small, many have found their own way to say goodbye to Barbara Bush. We hope this final gesture on our part pays tribute to her and her work in an appropriate and special way.